Hey everyone, this is Ishtiyaq here, and I'm here with my baby. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. We're supposed to be watering the plants, and there in the background you have Pico. So in this episode, what we're gonna be doing is, hey, yeah, ah, we're gonna see how we post process a photo of the Milky Way. Yeah, we're gonna go and do that as soon as we're done. We're in North Carolina in the summer. It's 100 degrees and he's full of energy, which is why I'm having a coffee at 6 in the afternoon in 100 degrees. Alrighty. So we are in Lightroom, and this is the sequence of photos that I chose for the particular photo. The final result is going to be this one. Yeah, give it a second to pull up. So that's the final version, and this this is of course after the processing has been done in Photoshop and back, and this is the version. This is the panorama stitched panorama version that I got out of Lightroom when I did this. Now the whole sequence is something that starts here, and it'll take a little time because the files, well, they aren't too big, but my Mac isn't really the fastest machine on the earth. So all right, so yeah, there you see the processed version, and it really isn't a big deal to get this. So that's why I'm showing the final version, and I will show the actual changes as well. But the first time that I found the Milky Way, the first shot that I took was something around, just one second for it to come up, was something around this region. And what I saw at the back of my camera, and I'm hitting the backslash button for the before version, so this was it. So I could tell from this that this is the Milky Way that I have. I was at the right spot, so I could take the photo and trace it from there. So how did I process? Well, there's the beach and there's a little cottage on the side, and that there was a lot of light pollution from there, but I wanted to make sure that the Milky Way is exposed properly and it has the right color and everything. So the technique that I used, the first thing to use here is to take care of here is your white balance. And the whole idea of white balance is that you have to make sure that everything is showing its true color. By that we mean that there is not going to be any cast from a particular color. There wouldn't be a yellow cast or a red cast or a green cast. So what we want is something neutral, and to get that neutral color we fix the white balance. And the reason I went through all of that is this was the white balance as shot, and as you can see here that there's a huge yellow cast and a red cast and green and blue. They're just all over the place. So what you do is you take the temperature slider and you keep, don't go all the way, but you keep moving it until you reach a point where it's mostly gray. And by that we mean that if it's gray, it means that every color is balanced, they're equal, you do not have a particular cast here. So that's what it was, and the value for me was about 3500. No, I just rounded it. So you can do that. The exposure was a little low, so this is how it was. So I went ahead and bumped it up just a little bit. Wasn't too worried about noise. The contrast, again, I pushed the slider a lot because, as you can see here, this looks very washed out, and the Milky Way is as much about the color as the stars. So the contrast slider I pushed to 60 in this case. The highlights and the shadows I did not play with, and the reason being, especially with the shadows, if I open something, it was bringing out a lot of grain, and it can be a somewhat of a trouble to distinguish between the stars and the grain. So I didn't do anything there. The whites and the blacks, these sliders, as always, I moved just a little bit, and I'm holding down the Alt button here so you can see that it starts here at 0, and you keep moving it until you see just a few, not it went too far, maybe, no, yeah, you saw a few white spots, and that tells you that you have reached pretty much as you as far as you can go for the whites, and same goes with the black. Um, this being a night photo and a landscape photo and an astrophoto, I pushed the clarity, vibrance, and saturation much more than I generally would, because the reason why we use these sliders in moderation is that if you push your clarity too much, the photo can become very choppy and the edges might look very bad. If you push your saturation too much, your photo can look orange. If you push your vibrance too much, again, you can end up with hideous colors. So that's the problem. But here, the task at hand is to bring out the very little blue and black and orange and gray and whatever other tint that you have in a black sky. So that's why I took more liberties with it than I generally do. As for the tone curve, that's where I came next, and let's show you how it was in the beginning. So this is the tone curve after everything has been, just your basic settings. Once those are done, this was what the tone curve looked like, and then I pushed it a little bit. So again, let's turn it off and on. And the way I did it, and the methodology of doing it, was I was looking at the very bottom. You see that I lifted the dark point just a little bit, just a touch, not too much, and then by adding another point here and pulling it down, I increased the richness of that black. So there was that there. And again, the reason why you move this slider again in the midpoint, again, you move it and you play with the color. You can do a lot of things if you are intent on finishing everything on Lightroom, and if you want to have a completely um, you know very deep colors and everything done. You play with this and you take more liberties with it than I did here. But the whole point here was just to change a little bit and bring out a little bit more. Again, you can see the settings. You see that the Milky Way is already there. It's not that you have to find it. At this point, all we're trying to do is enhancing it. So that's what I did with the colors. But of course, notice that the bottom part became somewhat of a distraction at that point. So nothing with the hue saturation, nothing with split toning. When it comes to the details, this is just the basic that is applied whenever you import a raw file. So I did not go and change anything, and I did not apply any masking. I did not apply any noise reduction. And it's important to know, because a lot of times photos that you took out in the middle of the night, it will definitely have a lot of noise, but it'll have color noise as well as the grain and luminous noise that you get. And if you take too much of a liberty with these, you might end up losing the actual color of the constellations that you have here, the stars you want to preserve. um, the Tamron 2470, just a basic lens correction and chromatic aberration fix that you do with every photo. Nothing to do with transform. And as far as effects go, make sure there's nothing here. Obviously, try to make sure that it's just the way it is. And I did come to camera calibration. I did play with it, but eventually went back to the standard. But if you want to, for different photos in different situations, you can pick these various other profiles. I picked this one. I played with the two landscape profiles, and the other ones, the vivid ones. It it really didn't appeal to me. So I just went back and left it the way it is. And this is the setting that I took and I applied on this series of 7 vertical photos and made a panorama. And the panorama I made in Lightroom, and I'm not going to complete that because it's going to take a lot of time. So instead, what I'm going to do is just select, go to photo merge, and then panorama. And the point here is that you have to make sure and pick the kind of projection that you like. So let's go through that very quickly, and it should bring up the suggestions sometime today. Okay, all right, it's creating the panel. So the one thing to remember here is that previously we had the auto crop option, and now we have the boundary warp on option as well. And whatever projection you choose, whichever one you go through, be sure to pay attention to these settings, and the reason being that whenever you're stitching a panorama like this, there may be details missing here and there, and you may not want it to be like that. So that's something to be mindful of. Let's cancel this because we already have the output here, and the output that you'll get will be something like this. So you see it's a little crooked here, missing some detail here. It's almost blown out here because, of course, even if this was just a street lamp that I had at 15 seconds, 3200 ISO and 20 and 2.8 f-stop, this is a lot of light. So that's something that required attention. But on the plus side, we have the Milky Way and the stars, the bright stars that you see. And now it's time to take this photo and take it to Photoshop to finish the job. So in order to do that, you right click, edit in, and edit in Adobe Photoshop. Again, that's something I did. So instead of going through the whole thing from the top, let's just open the file where I worked on it before. Alright, so let's close that, come to this one, and it's a huge file. This of course, as you can see, it's a panel of 7 photos, and there are multiple layers and lots of information, so it's going to take a little time, which is why I think the final file size that I have, I forgot how many gigs it is. I forgot, but it's huge. It's really huge. So let's just open the original. So this is the final version, and of course if we disable this whole section, we see where we started. And let's do this. Let's go through each of these, and let's look at the changes, because it's really not a big deal, the changes that have been made. So I can walk you through or answer questions if anyone has it, but the bigger task is just to just to see how it's done. So this is where we started, right out of Lightroom. And the first thing I did was I took it to Nik Software's the raw pre-sharpener, and let me show you the effect of it. And Nik, of course, as you know, is free now. I paid for it at one point, and it just every penny of it is worth it. So as you see in Nik, they have two sharpeners. One is the raw pre-sharpener and the other being the output sharpener. So I used the raw one, so let's disable. So we were before, and once we sharpen, we get something a little better. So that was the first one. The next was, again, I took the same version and I sent it to Nik again, and this time the filter I used was their dark contrasts, and this is the output. And the reason being, as I was saying, this is all too blown out, and this part here where the light shines, this is very distracting. So the point was I want to bring it down. So this was the first output of the dark contrasts, but as you can see, the Milky Way now is suffering. So what we did is something very simple, just put a mask on it. And I took a brush, a large brush with very low opacity and flow, and just painted. So you can do that. Let me show. Okay, so that's that one. And the next one was, again, take it to Nik, and this time was the color, the contrast color range filter, and I applied it. This one was meant more for the sky, and as you can see, the result again, this almost looks like a haunted house after this filter, so had to mask it out, and this time the other way, close the mask and open sections of it. And as you will see from the mask itself, I didn't really make it completely reveal it. I revealed just a little bit because I liked that extra little bit of color that it gave the Milky Way. So this is how it was, very blue, very washed out, and from there you have a little more warmth. So I took all of that, made a stamp of it, no change here, and then I went ahead and applied a levels adjustment layer. And let's open this one. So just basically squeezing it towards the left a little bit, so that as you saw, the effect being applied right away. So this is how it was. Again, to me it was all very washed out, and I wanted to get more clear definition in the sky, so I applied that, and once again, just like before, reveal just the sky portion of it and go from there. So that was that. And again, take that, create a stamp, and that's again, it takes a lot of space, but it's good habit to create these intermediate backups for yourself. So the next one was a vibrance adjustment layer, and the other one after that was a curves adjustment layer. And these two together, they have the same, I took the same mask and applied it on all three. That saves the trouble of having to paint it over and over again. And if you want to do that, the technique to do it is, let's say I create another adjustment layer, something, anything, right? And it has a mask already on its own, and you want this mask applied on this new one that you created. So when you press down Alt or Option and you drag, and that copies the mask. That's it. So it's a very simple process, and I mean process of copying, but that's what I used. And as you can see, not too many steps. And oops, just a mask got deleted. I want to delete the whole thing. Yeah, so there you go, not too many things. And as for the curves, this curve looks a lot like the one you saw in Lightroom, because this was the finishing curve I wanted to use towards the end, bring out just a little more pop, and that's it. So it's a very simple photo, simple processing. I wanted to keep it simple, and that way I can preserve the fun of having taken the photo. So I hope you find this useful. All that I did after this was I just exported it, took it to Lightroom, and all. That's it. So thank you so much. As I said in the beginning, this was a wonderful, wonderful experience taking this photo. Thank you.